Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC guy. Today I'm going to start a new series of videos showing you how you can design, build, install, and wire control panels like these that I use here on the Piedmont Southern layout. But before I get started, I have one favor to ask of you. Take a minute to click on subscribe below the video and also hit that notification bell. That way YouTube will let you know every time that I upload a new video in this series and also in the future. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, I've zoomed in on this control panel here in Charlottesville to give you a better feeling for one of the control panels that I started with here on the Piedmont Southern. And then we'll move on to some others. I've written about control panels in both of my wiring books, including a full chapter in Wiring Your Model Railroad and another one in Wiring Projects for Your Model Railroad. I've also covered this in some of my articles in Model Railroader. However, these videos will allow you to see the process step by step in much more detail than I've been able to do in the books and in the magazine articles. This one here in Charlottesville, as you can see, controls this compact industrial switching area. It was one of the first ones that I built for the layout. This panel uses toggle switches, and it's powered by a 12-volt AC power supply with blocking diodes. And I'll tell you a little bit about that on another time when we are working on designing these control panels. Basically though, it uses 12 volts AC and it routes positive and negative power to the tortoise switch machine depending on which way the toggles are thrown. This also controls the polarity of power going to these LEDs and determines whether you're seeing a green one or a red LED when it's thrown. Let's set that back. A simple flip of the toggle, as you can see, changes the polarity of power to the tortoise, simultaneously throwing the switch points and changing the LEDs. Okay? This is an important part of my design since I can tell operators that the most important thing is to never walk away from a control panel leaving a red light showing. The last thing you want to do is leave this mainline switch thrown and route a passenger train hurtling down this switching lead. Okay, this is a much smaller control panel than the other two. It fits neatly on a fascia here, and it uses a slightly different approach. You notice, for one thing, that the LEDs are much smaller, and so they all fit together much easier on these control panels than the much larger 5mm ones. Also, these use push buttons. What this one does is it uses an accessory decoder, a Switch 8 from North Coast Engineering, and it can control, as the name implies, 8 different turnouts with the push buttons here. And with this, all you have to do is hit the button, and it will automatically throw the switch for you. And you can see it does the same thing as far as the direction of travel. It shows you by the light which direction to go. You're going anyway. And also, by color, it tells you what the normal direction of travel is. Now, as I said before, this is very important because you can tell your operators, don't ever walk away from a control panel leaving a red indicator showing. The last thing you want is for somebody to come along thinking they're traveling down the main line and all of a sudden end up running off onto a siding somewhere. That's not the thing you want to do, especially with a passenger train, and especially if there's another train already parked down there. So it makes it quite straightforward to be able to see whether or not you're going the right direction, and also by design you can set it up so that you can tell people always leave all of the LEDs green before you walk away from a control panel. Okay, let's look over here for a minute at the big yard panel on the layout. Okay, this is the main yard control panel here in Monroe. It's just about 8 miles north of Lynchburg, Virginia. And it was one of the, it was the southern end of the Washington Division on the old Southern Railway. On this control panel, it's just a larger version of the one I just showed you, except it's got a few kinks on it. As you can see, I stuck with the same design, the red and green LEDs for normal and reverse direction of travel. I also used the red push buttons to maintain that same consistency with all the other control panels. One other thing that I have on this layout, as you can see, is the south signal here. Now that is for a signal at the south end of the yard that is normally red, and it stops trains before they come into the yard, and they have to ask permission to enter the yard. And then when the yard master pushes that signal button, it trips a relay which switches the color to green on that signal. And it stays green for 20 seconds, which is long enough for the crew to go ahead and get the train into the yard. And then it turns back to red again, so that the yard master doesn't have to fool with switching it back, okay? Takes that human element out of the picture again. So I've got that, I've got the turnouts here that are just all controlled again using the Switch 8 from North Coast Engineering. I also have these black push buttons located here. Notice they're all on the main line. Those control KD electromagnets that are placed underneath of the track. You don't want permanent magnets underneath the track on a main line. And all of these are either on a main line or the passing tracks. So they're all main tracks, and you don't want your trains separating as they move through the yard and causing problems. So to avoid that, I've put in these electromagnets. All you have to do is hit the button, and again, the relay trips and turns on the electromagnet. I've got it set for 20 seconds, and then it counts down and it cuts back off again. So 20 seconds should be plenty of time for the crews to uncouple from a train and put new power on, or to switch out a head-in car, passenger car, anything like that. The other thing that's here on the layout I wrote about in Model Railroader was the ability to control routes and set routes up this entire ladder. By simply pushing one button, all of the turnouts going up the ladder to track 6 are aligned for that particular position. Then if you want to go to the pulp racks, you throw that switch and it lines it up this way. You can come back here to track 6 to go back down. If you need to do work on the north passing siding, you can go ahead and hit that one and it realigns it, leaving the rest of them set. So you can continue doing work up here while the north passing line is independent. So this is a really nice feature. I was able to do that using a couple of Digitrax DS64 accessory decoders. And the LED is built into the switch, okay, the push button. So as soon as you hit it, it starts throwing the switch, and once it's completed its throw, then the LED lights up, letting you know that it's safe to move onto that track. This is I'll give you a view of what the inside of this looks like. And you can see it looks like a lot of complex wiring, but it really isn't. Okay, I've moved in a lot closer so you can see the various components in here. These are all the push buttons with their wiring to go to the Switch 8 here, and the button board, which is the interface for the push buttons themselves. And it sends the signals to the Switch 8, which controls all of the turnouts. Then I have these relay circuits. These are available off of Amazon.com. I bought them directly from a supplier in China, and it actually costs less to buy them ready to use than it would to build them yourself, let me tell you. So they're a real nice deal, and you can control the countdown time here. It's set for 20 seconds on all of these. And let me go up here, and I'll go ahead and hit one. I've hit this one, and you can see it's counting down 18, 17, 16, etc. And it'll go on down to 0, and then it'll flip back the other direction. It's got a nice little green LED in there to show you that it's operating. Okay, you can see it's counting down quite quickly now, and it'll eventually go to 0, and you'll hear it trip. There, it's back to its standard default setting. So, okay, I hope that gives you a better idea of the type of control panels that I'm going to show you how to build as part of this video series. In part 2, we'll go ahead and build the basic box, add the graphic overlay, and drill the holes for the switches and the LEDs. Then we'll go ahead and start wiring the LEDs and the switches together and hooking them up to the accessory decoder. Finally, we'll install everything on the layout and give it a test drive. Before we leave today, I want to ask you one more time to go ahead and click on subscribe and the notification bell, and keep coming back for more videos in the future. And if you have any questions, or if you have suggestions for future videos, please add them to the comments, or go to my website at www.dccguy.com and click on the Contact Me form, where you can send an email to me and make suggestions. That's all I have for today, so thanks a lot for watching. Bye.